The Defense Department demands that WikiLeaks return immediately to the U.S. government all versions of documents obtained directly or indirectly from the Department of Defense databases or records. WikiLeaks' public disclosure last week of a large number of our documents has already threatened the safety of our troops, our allies, and Afghan citizens who are working with us to help bring about peace and stability in that part of the world. Public disclosure of additional Defense Department classified information can only make the damage worse. The only acceptable course is for WikiLeaks to take steps immediately to return all versions of all of these documents to the U.S. government and permanently delete them from its website, computers, and records.
From the sound of the initial rhetoric of White House Representative Jeff Morrell on Thursday last week, one might assume that the doors of online whistleblower WikiLeaks would be blown open any day now. At the press conference, Morrell tried his best to imply that the government were well within their rights to demand that WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange remove all of these 76,900 classified military records from his website. They do not have that right. What Morrell has done here basically is come cap in hand to WikiLeaks. The White House knows that they have no place to demand that this information gets deleted from the website. And as the press conference went on, it became ever more clear what was happening.
If doing the right thing is not good enough for them, then we will figure out what other alternatives we have to compel them to do the right thing. Let me leave it at that.
What became abundantly clear is that the request itself is utterly ridiculous. And anyone with a passing knowledge of how the internet works will tell you why. For the government of the United States of America to ask that a website remove confidential files after they've already been online for a couple of weeks is just clearly pointless. Every reporter worth his salt, and indeed anybody who's interested, friend or foe, has already downloaded those files. That information is out there and it is never going back to the safe havens of the Pentagon's hard drives. So in addition to the government having no legal right to demand that WikiLeaks take down that information, it's also a pointless request. And they know this. The documents leaked so far basically just serve as detailed proof of what critics of the war have been saying all along, that this American-led invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan continues to be one long clusterfuck. If the occupation drags on, let's not call it a war, let's call it what it is. This is an invasion and a subsequent occupation. And it drags on. President Obama is continuing a Bush-era plan that will leave 50,000 non-combat troops in Iraq until at least the end of 2011. Meanwhile, Obama is sending 30,000 more troops to Afghanistan, bringing the total force there to over 100,000 in what is now the longest war in US history. The White House angrily denounced the leaks, saying that they put the lives of Afghan informants and US troops at risk. But this claim seems to be unsubstantiated when you look at the kinds of files that have been released. They simply graph statistics and field reports of military operations and incidents. And when pressed on the issue, there's been no official word on how exactly these files have put anyone in danger. There's been no official word because it's bullshit. So Assange can't be apprehended for what WikiLeaks itself has done, but he could be forcibly detained by the US government as a material witness in the prosecution of US intelligence analyst Bradley Manning. Manning was arrested in Baghdad in May and charged earlier this month with multiple counts of mishandling and leaking classified data after a computer hacker turned him in.
There is a young soldier, Bradley Manning, 22 years old, who is alleged to have been one of our sources for a video which exposed the killing of 2 Reuters journalists in Baghdad and up to 24 other people by an Apache helicopter. Now, he was shipped by the US military after this allegation came out from Baghdad to a holding cell in Kuwait, and he has been there for approximately 6 weeks now. Why is Bradley Manning being held in Kuwait? Is this a kind of offshore Guantanamo for a US soldier who has alleged to have leaked information to the press?
And the smear campaign against Manning has already begun. This taken from an article in the New York Times. He spent part of his childhood with his father in the arid plains of central Oklahoma, where his classmates made fun of him for being a geek. He spent another part with his mother in a small remote corner of southwest Wales, where classmates made fun of him for being gay. And now some of those friends say they wonder whether his desperation for acceptance or delusions of grandeur may have led him to disclose the largest trove of government secrets since the Pentagon Papers. As if discrediting the character of a person who may be responsible for this leak in any way changes what the leaks themselves represent. This is an all too common tactic of the government, and it shows the tremendous lack of respect for the intelligence of the public. Political spin and manipulation of information has become de rigueur to the point that they often severely underestimate the general public's ability to see through this bullshit, and Morell's press conference was a shining beacon of this complacency. The main focus of the press conference was blatantly to try and prevent the release of a further 15,000 files that WikiLeaks has encrypted onto the site but not yet released. WikiLeaks won't comment on the contents of these files except to say that they relate to security procedures.
Oh. We don't know for sure which 1,500 documents they are referring to. We have some ideas and are doing some proactive work, some prophylactic work in the event that the documents we suspect they could be are indeed the documents that they are threatening to post.
WikiLeaks has apparently posted an encrypted file called insurance that's 40 times as large as what they originally posted. Is the Defense Department making any efforts to try to find out what exactly is in this file?
Yeah, I'm not going to speak to those types of things. One last question. There's another hand.
The Pentagon is clearly shitting itself about the contents of these as-yet unreleased information, as well as a huge encrypted file on the site simply named insurance. But does anyone really believe that they're genuinely concerned for legitimate reasons such as protecting Afghan informants? WikiLeaks has purposefully held back on releasing a certain percentage of these files in order to make sure that they don't endanger any innocent parties. Speaking about the mysterious encrypted file on the site named Insurance, Assange said, "I think it's better that we don't comment on that, but one could imagine a similar situation that it might be worth ensuring that important parts of history do not disappear." This is a central motivation of WikiLeaks. They provide a powerful tool for the people to have access to information that the government wants to keep secret. Now, more than that, they're reclaiming journalism from a mass media that has become largely corrupted by political influence. Many of today's most powerful news corporations have become neutered in their capacity as the people's representative in holding the government accountable for their actions. In today's world where the US basically has no one to hold it accountable, the role of the media should be more crucial in this respect than ever. And what percentage of everything that the government marks as classified do you think is done so, not for genuine national security reasons, but because it's embarrassing? The only way democracy will really work is if we know what our government and leaders are up to, and so far they've shown no evidence that they can be trusted to tell the truth.
You have said in the past that it was, quote, pretty well confirmed.
No, I never said that. It's been pretty well confirmed.
We are able to keep arms from him. His military forces have not been rebuilt.
A reflection there of a change.
And that, many believe, was the truth. A truth that was covered up and conveniently forgotten after September the 11th, when Bush and Blair decided to attack Iraq.
This president was asked, where's Osama bin Laden? He said, I don't know. I don't really think about him very much. I'm not that concerned.
Gosh, I don't think I ever said I'm not worried about Osama bin Laden. It's kind of one of those exaggerations.
So I don't know where he is. Nor, I just don't spend that much time on him. I repeat what I said. I truly am not that concerned about him.
There were three main reasons for going to war in Iraq: weapons of mass destruction, the claim that Iraq was sponsoring terrorists who had attacked us on 9/11, and that Iraq had purchased nuclear materials from Niger. All three of those turned out to be false.
First, just if I might correct a misperception, I don't think we ever said, at least I know I didn't say, that there was a direct connection between September the 11th and Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein aids and protects terrorists, including members of Al-Qaeda. Secretly and without fingerprints, he could provide one of his hidden weapons to terrorists or help them develop their own.
So we know we can't trust them, but they are becoming more and more totalitarian in their approach over a broad range of policies. What does it say about our society that when efforts to expose what a democratically elected government is really doing, that there are cries for treason, yet while on the other hand the Supreme Court has given corporations more power to spend freely in federal elections? This is a major turnaround that threatens a century of government's efforts to regulate the power of corporations bankrolling American politics. The latter poses a far greater risk to the United States than any website posting some documents. The Obama administration is pressing Britain, Germany, Australia and other Western allied governments to consider opening criminal investigations of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange to severely limit his nomadic travels across international borders. But all this focus on what WikiLeaks does detracts from the bigger picture here. The US and NATO basically has no business trying to conquer Central Asia. Our armed forces have mistakenly killed an unknown number of Afghan civilians, tried to cover it up when we killed journalist Pat Tillman, and tried to cover up the killing of another couple of journalists with the collateral murder tapes that was also released by WikiLeaks several months ago. War is a disaster created by people against people. It's never an accident. Making war is always somebody's decision. Nations spend vast amounts of money on training soldiers to fight and kill, and they spend even more in devising and manufacturing weapons and machinery for fighting and killing. And for what purpose? When was the last time our governments mobilised troops for a truly defensive necessity? We have been the aggressors, the instigators and the reactionaries throughout recent history. In fact, aggression and revenge are deliberately incited to fuel war. Every war is backed by political and military propaganda, which fires anger, hatred and impulses to attack and retaliate. This serves at least two purposes. First, it allows armies to believe in what they're doing. And secondly, it seduces the people into supporting their leaders' war policies.
I don't need to talk to a soldier who likes killing Arabs to know that war is wrong. And I don't need to talk to a soldier who likes killing Arabs to know that I'm against the military-industrial complex. War is for men what prostitution is for women. You see the parallels so easily. There's the post-traumatic stress disorder, there's the destruction of lives, there's the damage. But apart from that, there's also the institutionalized oppression. Working-class males become soldiers. They become cannon fodder for rich men's wars.
We elected these people to represent us. They act in our name. They should not have carte blanche over deciding how they will try and conquer the world in these ways. The government trying to control information, and we can't allow this lack of transparency in our democracies. The US is currently held accountable by no one on the world governmental level. And in a democratic society, it's messed up that people will accept so much corruption. They want to keep these secrets not to protect anybody else, but to protect themselves. What WikiLeaks is doing should not be seen as controversial. This is journalism in its purest form, reporting the facts for the people and holding the government that we elected and who act on our behalf accountable for their actions.
Why do people leak such sensitive information to WikiLeaks instead of the Washington Post or instead of the New York Times? And now today, the WikiLeaks co-founder Julian Assange just said that in fact the Washington Post did have this collateral damage video for an entire year and they chose to never release it. This isn't the first time that we've seen mainstream media have sensitive information and not releasing it. For example, the New York Times with illegal wiretapping under the Bush administration. So do you think that as that becomes something that we see more often, where the mainstream doesn't want to put this information out there, that we'll see more WikiLeaks, more websites like that, more whistleblowing?
Absolutely. It's the mainstream media is so scared. They're so scared of the government, Democrat or Republican. They're scared of the right wing criticizing them. Oh my God, what if the government said we did something wrong? You're journalists. You're supposed to challenge government. They've totally forgotten what they're supposed to do.
Countering the military's preference to hide the truth when things go wrong is a worthwhile endeavour. We the people have a right to know and a need to know what impacts our military has on the people that we're supposed to be helping. And what's the point of all this? Well, our leaders, our politicians, are supposed to be our representatives, not our rulers. Sites like WikiLeaks and independent media like that may be instrumental in a restructuring of worldwide superpowers and governments that have become basically untouchable in terms of being responsible for their actions. Now, just to close up, to round this up, I'm going to read for you basically part of the mission statement from WikiLeaks. And this should really crystallise why this is such an important site and this is such important work that's being carried out. We believe that transparency in government activities leads to reduced corruption, better government and stronger democracies. All governments can benefit from increased scrutiny by the world community, as well as by their own people. We believe this scrutiny requires information. Historically, that information has been costly in terms of human life and human rights. But with technological advancements like the internet and cryptography, the risk of conveying important information can be lowered. In its landmark ruling on the Pentagon Papers, the US Supreme Court ruled that only a free and unrestrained press can effectively expose deception in government. WikiLeaks supports that decision. We believe that it is not only the people of one country that keep their government honest, but also the people of other countries who are watching that government. That is why the time has come for an anonymous global avenue for disseminating documents that the public should see. We believe WikiLeaks is the strongest way we have of generating the true democracy and good governance on which all of mankind's dreams depend.
Sooner or later, the people in this country are going to realize the government does not give a fuck about them. Government doesn't care about you or your children or your rights or your welfare or your safety. It simply doesn't give a fuck about you. It's interested in its own power. That's the only thing, keeping it and expanding it wherever possible.